How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Smith, and I'm delighted to have you back here with me today. We are back for the final episode in this special 3-part series all about letting go. Part 1 was letting go of perfectionism. Part 2 was letting go of people pleasing. And part 3 today is letting go of procrastination. So have you ever found yourself putting off tasks, even important ones, telling yourself you'll get to it later? Or maybe you find yourself shuffling things around only to realize that the day has slipped by without much progress. If that sounds familiar, my friends, you are not alone. Today, we're going to explore how to let go of those tight chains of procrastination. Let me share a story. Last year, I decided to launch a completely new project, unlike anything I had done before. The concept was super exciting. However, every time I set to start, I found myself buried in other quote-unquote urgent tasks. Emails needed responses. Client meetings cropped up. Smaller, more familiar tasks took precedence. It was as if my day-to-day responsibilities were conspiring to keep me from this new idea. Days turned into weeks, and the initial excitement really began to fade under the weight of endless postponements. I found myself stuck in this loop, watching my self-imposed deadlines fly by. Each one was a reminder of my inaction. It wasn't until I reached out for help getting started that I had recognized I'd fallen deep into the procrastination pit. This realization was the wake-up call I needed to break that cycle and dive into the project. And now that I'm in it, it has been so much fun. By the way, this is a secret project for now, but more to come on that soon. Procrastination is a common issue that many of us face, and it often stems from either emotional or logistical challenges. And when we procrastinate, it's frequently because we feel overwhelmed by the size or the complexity of the task and afraid of even succeeding sometimes, or unsure how to even begin. These feelings can create a mental barrier that makes avoiding the task easier than confronting it. So let's talk about both the emotional barriers and the logistical barriers. The first emotional barrier that I hear a lot is fear of failure. One of the most common reasons we procrastinate is the fear of failure. We worry that our efforts won't meet expectations, either our expectations or the expectations of others, and this fear can paralyze us into inaction. So addressing the fear involves acknowledging it and then reframing our minds about failure. So instead of seeing it as a negative endpoint, we can view it as a valuable learning experience and an integral part of the path toward success. As we talked in the perfectionism episode, no one is born perfect. You have to get out there and try and be willing to fail and learn from the experience in order to move forward. Now, on the other side of the fear of failure is the fear of success. Some might fear the implications of success, like increased responsibilities, expectations, or even changes in social dynamics. I recently talked with a beloved client about this. She was getting promoted, although feared the added responsibilities and that she wouldn't have all the answers. So we talked about the fact that promotions often involve a learning curve and that it's okay not to have all the answers right away. She has a very strong growth and learning mindset, so I encouraged her to embrace the challenges as opportunities for growth. This fear of success can be a little more subtle, but it's just as debilitating. So it's important to explore these feelings through reflection or discussion to understand the root and then plan ways to manage potential outcomes. Overwhelm is another major emotional barrier. When a task appears too big, our brain's natural response can be to avoid it altogether. This is super common for those making a heart-based career change. It feels overwhelming. Although by breaking down the overwhelming task into smaller, manageable pieces, it can help reduce that overwhelm, making the project or the career change seem more approachable and much less intimidating. So now that we've talked about the emotional barriers, let's discuss the logistical barriers. Logistical barrier number 1 is uncertainty about where to start. Not knowing where to start can stop progress before it even begins. This logistical barrier can be addressed by outlining the task, creating that step-by-step plan, and identifying the very first action, no matter how small. Sometimes simply starting with an easy part of a task can build momentum and clarity. I've often found myself in this situation where I feel like I don't even know what I don't even know. So getting started by asking a question or starting with a framework can always be helpful. Another logistical barrier is lack of resources. Sometimes we put things off because we don't have the right tools. Without necessary resources, tasks can feel completely overwhelming or even impossible to start. This can lead to a cycle of delay as we avoid confronting what we need to move forward. So whether it's missing critical data, lacking skills, or needing additional guidance, identifying and addressing these gaps early on can help break that cycle of procrastination. Another big logistical barrier that I hear all the time is time constraints. Feeling like there's not enough time can also lead to procrastination. This I can so relate to, especially when you have a demanding day job and you're trying to work on other fun, creative projects or create that heart-based career change plan or start a side gig. It's really hard to find time. So this often requires a reassessment of priorities and perhaps some time management techniques like time blocking or even delegation to make space for the task at hand. When it comes down to it, navigating a new project or a career change can often seem daunting due to emotional and logistical hurdles. The key is to recognize and address the barriers. That only helps clarify why we're here and arms us with the practical tactics to make decisive, intentional actions. Speaking of practical steps, here are several effective strategies that have significantly helped me and many of our community members move past procrastination. Step number 1 is to ask for help. An accountability partner can change everything. When I launched this podcast, feeling overwhelmed was an understatement. So I got help by teaming up with my dear colleague, Courtney, who shared my goal of overcoming procrastination to start her own podcast. So we committed to regular progress updates and clearly defined expectations. This accountability partnership was transformative. So it really shifted my mindset, and adding these meetings to the calendar gave me those personal deadlines, and we set these commitments together. We were both determined to honor these commitments. The partnership also deepened our professional friendship, which added such a joyful layer of mutual support, and it was invaluable. Practical step number 2 is time blocking. It's no secret that I love the daily ritual 5 minutes to flourish. Time blocking is a powerful tool for procrastination. We discussed this in the perfectionism episode as well. I can't help but repeat it because it's so good. So every morning, I start with my favorite 5 minutes to flourish ritual. I set a timer for 5 minutes and I begin a task. When the timer rings, I choose to continue or stop. Often, this jumpstarts longer periods of productivity. I swear by this method and encourage everyone to try it. This approach really helps to demystify the starting process, breaking down those mental barriers and catalyzing action that often leads to more sustained work periods. This has worked for every single project and change I've made in the last probably 10 or 15 years. It's a big deal. Another way to help break out of procrastination is to prioritize. This was another game changer for me when I started doing it. So instead of going into your week reactive and just replying to whatever comes your way, take a pause and identify your top 3 key priorities. So every week, I carve out time at the end of the week to select my key 3 priorities that will be most impactful for my goals for the following week. This focus prevents feeling swamped and it clarifies where to direct my energy first. This also gives me something to focus on when I'm doing that 5 minutes to flourish. So I take a look at those top 3 priorities and then work on one of them for just 5 minutes. Knowing these priorities and their importance simplifies daily decision-making, and it really boosts my drive to start them, minimizing that urge to procrastinate. This method helps me to stay aligned with my seasonal intentions and my priorities and ensuring each week contributes meaningfully to those overarching ambitions. Number 4 is to celebrate each mini milestone for sustained motivation. Acknowledging every small accomplishment is crucial for maintaining motivation. These celebrations, whether it's a special treat like a fancy coffee or even a walk around the block, create a positive feedback loop, making even daunting projects feel more manageable and enjoyable. This doesn't have to be all blood, sweat, and careers. It can be fun. And celebrating these moments reinforces a positive association with each task completion, and it provides that emotional uplift, which is really necessary to continue progressing forward, especially during large, challenging projects. It makes work fun. Now let's talk through a hypothetical career change example here. So let's say Carrie is a successful food blogger and photographer. She always dreamed, however, of transitioning into the sustainable fashion design world. The nature of such a significant change was completely overwhelming and led her to procrastinate for years. So here's how she made it work. Number 1, she called up her friend Emma for an accountability partner. So Carrie reached out to her friend Emma, a successful entrepreneur, to be her accountability partner. They set up weekly calls where Carrie would share her progress and her plans. Emma's support and gentle prodding turned Carrie's vague, "I should learn about sustainable fabrics," into concrete actions. Their partnership not only kept Carrie on track, but also provided emotional support during really challenging times. Then she set up her 5 minutes to flourish ritual. So at the start of each day, before logging in to her demanding day job, she implemented the 5 minutes to flourish technique. She set a timer for 5 minutes and started working on one small task related to her career transition. This could be things like researching sustainable fashion brands or even sketching design ideas. Often, these 5 minutes would extend to hour-long sessions of productive work, helping her build momentum and confidence. From there, she identified 3 weekly priorities at the beginning of each week. These would help move her closer to her goal, and it's also what her and Emma talked about during their weekly check-ins. These things might include completing an online fashion design course or reaching out to a potential mentor in the sustainable fashion industry or building her portfolio. Each was focused on something that was going to make her achieve steady progress without feeling overwhelmed. From there, she celebrated her mini milestones. She created this visual progress map in her notebook, and every time she completed a task or reached a milestone, she added a colorful sticker to her map. And this simple act of celebration kept her motivated and provided a tangible reminder of how far she'd come. By consistently applying these tactics, Carrie was able to overcome her procrastination and make significant strides toward her new heart-based career path. Within a year, she had learned a ton in sustainable fashion design, built a small portfolio, and even secured a short-term project with an eco-friendly fashion label. Her path from food to sustainable fashion was well underway, proving that with the right strategies, it's possible to beat procrastination and achieve even the most daunting career transitions. So this example was made up, but I want you to know that many community members have used this framework to make their career change happen. So it is not impossible. It is possible to use these tactics to overcome procrastination and start taking one tiny step towards your heart-based path. In summary, these strategies are not just methods, but transformative practices that encourage dynamic shifts in how we approach our work and our intentions. They foster a proactive mindset, turning potential stagnation into progressive momentum. So now for our call to action. This week, I challenge you to dedicate just 5 minutes and consider a project you've been delaying. From there, choose one of these strategies to start overcoming procrastination. Maybe it's asking for help or finding that accountability partner. Maybe you're going to begin your day with 5 minutes to flourish. Maybe you'll plan the 3 most impactful tasks for next week. And maybe even you'll celebrate a small success. Let's make those 5 minutes a pivotal step towards more productive and rewarding actions in our careers and beyond. So in summary, today we tackled the final segment in our series on letting go, procrastination. We discussed that understanding the emotional and logistical barriers that fuel procrastination, such as fear of failure, fear of success, and overwhelm. We explored practical strategies like seeking an accountability partner, time blocking, and prioritizing that can help us overcome these barriers. And then, of course, we're remembering to celebrate each small step that's not only going to sustain us, but also motivate us and make the path more fun. Thank you so much for joining me on this series about letting go. Over the last few weeks, we've discussed some of the most common workplace challenges, letting go of perfectionism, people-pleasing, and procrastination. Each of these can hold us back from flourishing in our careers. I hope the insights and strategies we've explored will empower you to move forward with greater confidence. And remember, the goal isn't to be perfect, but to be purposeful and present in everything we do. As always, the notes from today's episode can be found on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you next time.